Right guys, as most of you know, Sadiq Khan has spent most of this year wasting the country's money and then going to the government begging for more. I've actually lost count of how many times he's been bailed out, and I expect we haven't even been told about all of them. We know what he's like when it comes to his PR budget and the amount he spends on it. I think last time I checked he spends more a year than like 5 or 6 of them did in a row. But obviously at this point that is nothing new. Apparently though, he has asked for another 29 billion in extra funding, which is not really surprising, but it is rather incredible. And he has been called out for this by a variety of people, including, as we see here, reported in the Express, Middlesbrough Mayor Andy Preston. It headlines, Sadiq Khan blasted for London entitlement after demanding £29 billion in extra funding. Middlesbrough Mayor Andy Preston has claimed Sadiq Khan's demand of £29 billion to help with the coronavirus pandemic will send a message that London is privileged and entitled. Well, the people in London that think like Sadiq Khan does are privileged and entitled, let me tell you that right now. Sadiq Khan lives in that central London bubble where they think their shit don't stink and we're all a bunch of scumbags, especially those who are from outside of London, but even those that are just not part of the Westminster bubble. Last week, the Mayor of London submitted his request to Chancellor Rishi Sunak, which includes a staggering £20.5 billion to build affordable homes and £5.65 billion for Transport for London. So add that to the already few billion that he's had for Transport for London. Is he actually taking the piss? What the hell does he keep doing with all this money? Mr. Khan claimed the capital should be prioritised in the spending review because London will power the UK's economic recovery, not if you get your way and lock it down, you dopey tosspot. How this fucking idiot has not thought that through unless he plans to use this 29 billion to prop up the economy while he shuts it down and rules it like he is Nicola Sturgeon. You know, the despotic spunk trumpet up in Scotland who is locking it down like she is Kim Jong-un. It goes on, Middlesbrough Mayor Andy Preston lashed out at Mr. Khan's demands, saying it's a monstrous number. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Which I expect even Rishi Sunak, who has been a bit free-flowing with taxpayers' money, probably balked at the sum. And hopefully we'll tell him to fuck off, because I don't know how he's going to pay for what he's already promised out. Mr. Preston told Express.co.uk the first thought is, wow, that's a monstrous number. That's such a huge number. It's arguably meaningless because no one can envisage that kind of number. Yes, they really can. We know it's a lot of fucking money, and it certainly shouldn't be given to this worthless little tosspot. What I think he is trying to do is articulate just how much damage COVID is doing to people's jobs, to the capital's tax receipts, which of course don't go into a black hole. No, that is not what he is after at the end of the day. If he cared about that, he wouldn't be demanding that London is essentially locked down. He just wants free money from the government like any Labour politician. It goes on, they actually support further jobs in the NHS, they allow councils to look after people and our roads, and they fund the army. Which yes, of course they do. We all know they fund the NHS's diversity and inclusion managers at like 50 or 60k a year. He goes on, so there's a monstrous problem here. I think Sadiq Khan's huge number will definitely baffle people. No, it's just ridiculous and people will think that. But the fact that London is asking for such a huge number could alienate people too. Well, obviously that's going to, and it wouldn't surprise me if it did, and I wouldn't blame them either. But at the end of the day, everyone needs to remember that Sadiq Khan really doesn't speak for London. He is a snivelling shitweasel who hopefully will be kicked to the curb sooner rather than later. He goes on, because while London deserves help, anybody with 10% of the average brain knows that London has been a disproportionate beneficiary forever. Well, yes, of course it is, but it has also been funding practically everything forever also. That square mile of London really helps pay for the whole party when it comes down to it, but that doesn't mean the whole load of investment should be sent there. At the end of the day, the government should open up the fucking economy and get on with life. But they ain't going to do that, because apparently they seem to have an agenda. But the help London really needs is getting rid of Sadiq Khan. I don't know about any monetary help. We certainly need to get rid of him, and then I think London will sort itself out. Meaning the government could send most of the money up north and to other places around the country. But they won't do that because logic left this government in around March. Now the rest of it goes on about capital projects and spending reviews, which I think needs to be covered in a separate video, especially in relation to fucking HS2. Because even while they fuck up the country royally, they plan to continue that waste of money. But once again, Sadiq Khan has shown himself himself to be a useless tosspot without a clue what goes on in the real world or, in fact, around the rest of the country. I mean, imagine sitting there demanding 29 billion in extra funding after all the extra funding he's already been given because he sent TfL into the shitter. And apparently, he still seems to be doing that because, as this said, he's asked for like another 5.9 billion to fund that, which is rather baffling because I have seen plenty of people getting on buses and apparently the tubes are running with a decent number of people on them, unless he's still giving people free fares, which wouldn't surprise me with this stone cold loser.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going and we are glad to be going. We're off.